Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's talk about LinkedIn and, more importantly, about online personal branding. And today we're actually going to talk about business influencers, what it is, what it means, how can you become one, what is a business influencer, and so forth. So I hope you enjoy this talk and also learn something new. Now, before we start, I also have some questions for you. So I would love if you could actually answer to those questions in the polls. I will go ahead and publish all of them now. So the first question is, how often do you use LinkedIn? And it would be great if you could just vote if you use it once a day, once a week, a few times per month, or very rarely. And the second question I have for you is, have you actually heard about business influencers before? And again, I just published the questions now, so whenever you see them, just make sure you answer, and then we can check the results at the end of the presentation and see where you are with this LinkedIn thing. Now, if we just go ahead, a little bit about me. My name is Kotryna Kurt, and I'm the founder and CEO of a company called LinkedIn. For the last five and a half years, I have been actively creating content on LinkedIn, really diving deep into the platform, learning about it, helping clients. And for the last 2 years, we have been building LinkedIn, where we help other companies grow with the power of LinkedIn. So just about me, as you can see, I have different accounts on the slide, so feel free to reach out. And also, I'm a very much practitioner and fan of analytics. So whatever I'm going to share today, I also backed up with some statistics and analytics from either existing clients or the case studies that we had at the company. All right, and when it comes to LinkedIn, we have worked with different companies, as you can see, from small to medium and big corporations. And we have also worked with some people, some personal brands. We have helped some people to establish themselves within their industries, within their niche. And I guess that's why today we're talking about being a business influencer, something that has been, well, something that has been out there for the last 1 year, I would say, or more. But especially now, companies and people are realizing that they have to be out there as well. So even though it has been out there for a while, only now it's really getting traction. And another thing, while we're talking about personal branding, is actually why we're talking about business influencers, right, in the first place. So there are a lot of different strategies when it comes to LinkedIn, right? There are content creation strategies, there are different strategies when it comes to Sales Navigator, and so on. But one of the strategies for brands, for other companies when it comes to LinkedIn, is actually LinkedIn business influencers. Now, what I mean by that is that some companies these days are now realizing that they can actually talk with other people on LinkedIn, with people who have big following, with people who have big audiences, and ask them to make some content for the company or about the company, right? And in that way, people actually become like a new channel for companies and brands to advertise from and just get some traction for their company. So as you can see, LinkedIn business influencers is now one of the ways for companies to gain more traction as well. So just to begin, what is, in simple words, a personal brand? Because we hear about it a lot. I think it's been a buzzword for the last 2 years, but not a lot of people at the end of the day know what it is. So in simple words, personal branding is everything about you, right? It's the way you look, the way you talk, the way you portray yourself online and offline. It's the way you communicate via emails, is the way you communicate when you meet someone in real life, and everything else. So everything that you have about yourself, or how other people perceive you, that's a part of your personal brand. What is interesting here is that in the last years, and especially when pandemic hit the world, we noticed that personal brand, even though it has been like that also before, but now even more than ever, it gained traction online, right? So your personal brand is made out of two things: offline personal brand and online personal brand, right? And before, it was very important to look at your offline personal brand, because that was the way you meet new people, they see you in real life, and that's how they perceive you. That becomes a part of your brand. Now these days, in the last year, a lot of people meet us online, and that's why personal branding online is now gaining more traction, and is just much more important than ever. And again, whenever I would do a speech and would ask people to raise their hands, and those who raise their hands, they think that they have a personal brand. And often it would be that maybe out of 50 people, we have two people who raise their hands. And actually, at the end of the day, all of us have a personal brand. And it's not about whether you have a personal brand, it's actually about controlling your brand. And let me tell you this: if you have some information or a profile on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, any other social media platform, you already have a personal brand. And it's up to you to take control of that, and make sure that people who see your social media profiles also actually understand what you're all about in the best way possible. All right, and then in simple words, personal brand is actually your reputation. So whatever you have about yourself out there, the way people see you, that's basically becomes a part of your reputation. And let me tell you this: if people perceive you in the best way, in the way that you want to be perceived, then you have a really great reputation. If they don't, your reputation is going down. So that's just how you can simply understand what it is. And at the end of the day, everyone's profiles, all of your profiles, are also representing not only you and yourself, but also the company that you work for. And you're all becoming virtual ambassadors of the companies. And also, at the end of the day, the profiles that have more traction, actually the profiles that are optimized and the profiles that are strong, are getting 2 times more profile views. So at the end of the day, personal branding has a lot of benefits. And again, it's a little bit sad to see how some people are yet not taking control of their brands, and just really getting those benefits of having an active and strong brand. Now, another example that I wanted to show you is, well, you can see it right now on the slide, is on the left side, you can see a person's profile, which is perceived as having a weak personal brand, right? It's not clear what the person's profile is, like what the person is doing. It's not really clear, because the person doesn't have a picture. The person also doesn't have a background picture. And it's just really not clear even where this person works at which company, right? On the right side, you can see a profile of my colleague, and that's how you can right away perceive her profile and her brand as a strong brand, right? Right away from the batch, when you're visiting someone's profile, you already make an assumption whether they're active on LinkedIn or not. And having all the information filled out and having a nice optimized profile is something that you must have if you even are considering to work with your LinkedIn, work with, become a business influencer, become a thought leader within a specific niche. Then the first step that you need to think about is actually your profile, because that right away gives a feeling to the person that looks at it, right? And even though you might be creating the best content ever, if you're attracting companies and people towards your profile, and it's very difficult to understand what it actually stands for, then you're still gonna lose on all of those potential offers or potential collaborations with brands and so forth. So at the end of the day, just really look into your profile first, and then the next step is really to think, okay, where do I want to brand? In which industry, which niche, what kind of companies I want to attract, right? All right. And then, like I mentioned before as well, 85% of people these days, and I feel like maybe even more, meet us virtually. So now more than ever, again, it's very vital for you to be out there and to really take care of your brand. Again, just want to remind you that I have published 2 questions. So if you have not yet answered, make sure to do so. One question is about how often you're using LinkedIn, and another question is, have you actually heard about business influencers on LinkedIn? And we'll take a look at the results at the end of the presentation when we have the Q&A session. All right, and when it comes to developing a strong brand, right now I just want to give you a little bit more information about that, and then later on we'll dig deeper into really what it means to be an influencer on LinkedIn. But in the beginning, even before you start, you need to develop a good brand, and that you can do, as I mentioned, by first optimizing your profile, second, creating content. So of course, if you want to get traction, if you want to get potential offers, if you want to get potential collaborations, you do need to create content. And you do need to start creating content a little bit in advance, a little bit ahead, because those companies that would want to work with you, or those people that would want to work with you, they will take a look at your content. And if they see that you only recently started posting, it's not going to be a very valid point when you're negotiating your price, right? And another thing is that whenever companies are looking at someone's content, they're also looking at engagement. So you want to have that engagement going, you want to have those comments and everything else. And for that, you need to build your audience. And finally, expanding your network, right? Because it's also important for business influencers that they have the right people within their network. And let's say you have decided to create content for marketing people, right? You're within marketing industry and you would like to get more marketing offers. So in this case, you should, of course, add more people from the marketing industry. So whenever you create your posts, they're getting more traction, just because that was the mistake, or not a mistake, but that was something I had to deal with in the beginning of my content creation journey, was that in the beginning, I had a lot of contacts in my network from sales, and my content was mainly about marketing. And back then, I was not getting a lot of traction, and it really made me think, okay, what is it that I'm doing wrong? Is there something wrong with my content? Should I change my strategy, and so forth? But then I decided to make this experiment, and for 1 month, I've tried to really add people from marketing and continue posting the content that I had. And that really made the difference for me, and it really switched with the content and engagement, because suddenly my content was very exciting and interesting for all of my connections. So again, remember to expand your network within the niche that you want to advertise and promote yourself within. And just another quick reminder, at the end of the session, we're going to have a Q&A. So if you have any questions while I'm doing the presentation, while I'm going through my slides, feel free to write them in the Q&A in the chat, and then I'll cover those questions and answer them at the end of the presentation. All right, and when it comes to creating content, at the end of the day, what we see from the people that we work with and from their personal brands, storytelling is still the best strategy for your summary and for your content and for any other parts of your profile, and it just really makes a difference, right? Whenever we see like our clients posting something about the industry and adding a little bit of their own experience or sharing a story from their business or their daily work life, that really makes a difference, and it gets maybe 3 times, if not 4 times more views and engagement. So at the end of the day, if you're thinking about creating content for your brand, if you're thinking about becoming and you want to become a thought leader, remember that storytelling and being transparent with your audience is really what makes a difference at the end of the day. And really, I know it's difficult because a lot of people are not used to sharing stories, and just in general, it's difficult to create content and start with content creation for yourself when you're a professional. But if you can get through that hurdle and really open up and start sharing your stories, then you'll see a difference. And to be honest, it will be faster to grow your own brand, which leads me to my next point. And that is that when we work with people, with private people on their brands, we see that it takes up to 3 months of consistency to build a brand, right? So by this, I mean that, let's say we have, of course, people with different goals. Some people want to get more speaking engagements. Some people want to get more clients. Some people want to become a part of other companies and things like that. So depending on your goal, of course, but mostly if you create content consistently with a strategy and a goal in mind, what you want to have after those months, then you can definitely build a brand within 3 months. Personal branding is a long-term game, and you should see it as a long-term benefit rather than short-term gain, right? And what I mean by it, by creating a brand within 3 months, I mean that the very first opportunities and collaborations usually start coming in after 3 months. And then, of course, later on, if you continue, it also helps, and it also helps to bring even more possibilities and more opportunities for you. And another interesting research that was actually done by a company called Connected Circles was actually a research where they were comparing company CEOs and directors, chairmen, with their company brands. And as you can see here from the slides, the research has shown that even though a company page like Volkswagen has 861,000 followers, and their chairman has 114,000 followers, their chairman posts get almost 400% more engagement than the company's posts. Now, this really shows us that actually people are much more important on LinkedIn, and companies, top management, and all the other business influencers, they have much stronger power to get engagement and reach people than companies posts. Also, when you're scrolling on your LinkedIn newsfeed, you can see that most of the content that you're being exposed to is actually content of what other people did, right? Someone commented, someone shared something, someone liked something, and so forth. So at the end of the day, it's people that we are looking into. And that's why, again, we're talking about business influencers today, because companies are now noticing that people have much more power rather than companies. And the same with an example from IKEA, right? A company that big has 1.6 million followers on the company page on LinkedIn. Their CEO has 37,000 followers, yet still whatever the CEO posts is getting 300% more engagement. So again, if you want to see more about the research, you want to read more about it and see the rest of the examples, go to connectedcircles.net, check their reports. But at the end of the day, this is what really shows us that people have more power, and we should be thinking about how we can help other companies, how we can become those business influencers, if that is our goal, of course, or how, let's say, how our company's top management can start building their brands and being more active, what steps they need to take. And then when it comes to terms and how people are calling these people these days, there are three terms that I often hear is either LinkedIn content creators, LinkedIn influencers, or thought leaders. So whatever you want to call yourself or whatever you want to call those people who create content is all right. You know, some people don't like to say that they're influencers. I mean, this word has a lot of stigma, but on the other hand, I feel like these are the terms that you can use if you're talking with some companies and you want to build some kind of relationships, you want to get some collaborations going, then you can present yourself as either content creator, LinkedIn influencer, LinkedIn business influencer, or a thought leader, niche or industry. So these are some of the ways how you can talk about what you're doing and who you are. And then another, a common friend actually made a post on LinkedIn, which I also found very interesting. He actually asked people whether or not the content that he was posting and publishing that was actually sponsored by other companies changes how people perceive him, right? The thing is that, you know, we're often afraid that if we build this brand, if we have this strong brand, and we have done it organically with no sponsors, no sponsored content, no ads, what would happen if, you know, we actually start creating once in a while some sponsored content? Well, the answer was that to be honest, a lot of people don't really care, and it seems like if it's providing the same value, if it's giving the reader somewhat of news, some kind of value, right, then it's all good. So you shouldn't worry if you're thinking about, you know, whether that's going to affect your brand, because on LinkedIn people care about value, and if your post is bringing value, then it's all good. So this was a very interesting research for me, at least, because I was also having a little bit of a trouble to, you know, seeing how this is going to affect my own brand, right? Now, some examples. So how can business influencer posts look like, right? If you would think about, you know, how can you do this? Do I need to actually mention that this post is sponsored? Do I need to write hashtag ad? Do I need to write hashtag sponsored? Well, let me tell you that there's not really any guidelines yet. You know, Instagram, Facebook, they have their own guidelines about influencers. They have their own, you know, lists of the things you have to comply to. And when it comes to LinkedIn, it's because it's just so new and so fresh. There are no rules yet. Yet it doesn't mean that you shouldn't. You should hide, you know, that this is a sponsored post. So what you can see from these two examples, the first example is a post that I have done a while ago, and it was one of the first sponsored posts that I had. And as you can see, I just wanted to be transparent with my audience, right? Because I mean, it would also look very weird that one day out of nowhere, while posting about LinkedIn and everything else, I just randomly make a post about another company and their services. So sometimes being straightforward with your audience is actually the best thing you can do. And here, what I did, I actually wrote in the beginning of my post ad in the brackets, just to let people know that right away from the batch, they're reading something that, you know, I'm promoting. Yet it doesn't mean that they should you know, not read the post still, but now they're aware and people do not feel tricked, because often what you would see with these you know, posts and influencer posts, you would see that people really get involved within with a specific piece of content, and then after a while they see that this is actually a sponsored post. So then they get angry, and that's what we're seeing on Instagram, that people get angry because they feel tricked. They feel like they started reading a genuine post, someone who's honestly sharing their thoughts, and then bam, in the end, they're hit with hashtag sponsored, hashtag ad. So my strategy here was that actually sometimes it's just better to be transparent from the beginning and share already that, hey, this is actually an ad, but you might find it interesting. And then the other example that you can see on the right by my good friend Anas. By the way, you should follow him. He's also doing quite a lot of great posts. Um, he also wrote sponsored by Blackline right in the beginning of his slide, of his post. So right away, I guess all of the followers are also aware that this has been sponsored, and then they continue reading. So this what has worked for us. I have also seen other people do this. I've also seen other people write ad in the beginning of their posts. I've also seen people use hashtag ad, hashtag sponsored. So again, there are not really any rules as of for now, but I feel like they're gonna come. And especially with the latest news, if you're not aware, LinkedIn is promoting content creators profiles. It's slowly rolling out. It's not rolled out across Europe just yet. I've seen most of the people within the US or English speaking countries that have gotten this function. But basically all the people who create content on LinkedIn will be able to have a content creator profile, and in that way their followers are going to be shown more, their content is going to be prioritized more, and there's going to be loads of other benefits. So stay tuned. If you're into LinkedIn, if you're creating content, keep on doing that, because LinkedIn is just going to make it easier for all of us, or for those who want to start creating content, because they're actually going to roll out this content creators platform, content creators mode. And I guess that's where we will see some guidelines about sponsored content and sponsored posts. Then another question that often people ask me when it comes to LinkedIn influencers is that, do I need to reach out to companies myself? Or, if I want to be a business influencer, can companies just reach out to me? How does this work? And at the end of the day, again, there is not a single strategy that would work for everyone. It really depends on your own network, because whoever notices that you're doing these posts, they might reach out to you. My main point here would be that you should first show to your network that you're able of doing these posts, right? Because people are not aware that you are available for such collaborations with other companies unless you show them, right? The same goes to some of the clients who, let's say, want to get more speaking engagements. They want to get more speeches, invites to speak somewhere. Then I ask them, did you make a single post about speaking or about a speech that you have done? And then they go like, no, actually, I haven't. So how does everyone else should know that you actually can speak if you haven't really shown? So the same applies here. If you want to get more speaking engagements, or if you want to get more, let's say, companies working with you, sponsoring your content on LinkedIn, then you need to really show them. Create some posts for free. Shout out some companies. And in that way, you have some examples already. And when a company wants to work with you, you can also show some screenshots, show some examples of the posts that you have already done. Because now I have also received some new collaboration offers in the last few months, and I was able to then copy the links of my previous posts where I did, some sponsored content posts, and show them exactly how it could look like, how many comments they're getting, how many views they're getting, what's the reach, and so forth. So you really need to make sure you have some case studies before you even reach out, or before companies reach out to you. And again, having those posts, having those sponsored posts in your feed shows to other people that you're doing that, and companies are more there's a higher possibility that companies are going to reach out to you. And whenever a question arises, how can I become an influencer? and how do I identify influencers. So we talked a little bit about how do you become an influencer on LinkedIn. It's through your profile, a good profile, strong content, valuable content, and your network size. And now, how do you identify influencers? Right now, let's put ourselves in your potential collaborator's shoes. So there are some statistics, some things that you should think about, or that the companies are looking into. Companies are looking into your follower number. So they're looking into the number of followers versus the number of connections, because it might look like, let's say, a person has 20,000 followers, but you don't know if one of those 20,000 is followers, and maybe 19,000 are just connections. So meaning that the person just clicked connect, 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 and in the same way increase the number of their followers, right? So often companies, when they talk with business influencers on LinkedIn, they also ask to show what's the ratio of how many followers you have, actual followers, so you're not connected to them, but they're actually following you, and how many connections you have out of all of those thousands. Then the other thing that companies are looking into when they collaborate with people is content engagement ratio and comments. What really makes a difference is not always the views, but actually the engagement ratio and how many people out of all of those who've seen your content are engaging with it. So giving it a like, leaving a comment, and so forth. Really, for brands, what matters is that people talk about them, people spread the word, and that's why, again, they're looking at the number of comments. The third point is quality of the content. You can be creating a lot of content, you can be getting a lot of views, but a lot of likes, but not necessarily always it means that you have valuable content and content that attracts the right audience, which kind of connects with my other point, industry, and that companies are looking into where your followers are coming from, right? Because if you have a piece of content that doesn't have a lot of value, but you still have a lot of likes, then maybe, maybe your content is attracting people, but maybe it's not attracting the right people, not the people that the brand would want to attract. So at the end of the day, the brand is looking at your quality of content, so that it's well branded, the text is nice, you have all the valuable insights, and they're also looking into your industry. So are the people who follow you coming from the industry that the brand or the company wants to advertise at? And finally, other sponsored posts, like I mentioned, it's important to show to the potential client that wants to work with you as a person your other posts that have generated engagement and insights and everything else. So that's really how you identify influencers if you're a company. And for those who want to be influencers on LinkedIn thought leaders, that's what companies are looking into. Now, like I mentioned, it's also important that you write your questions into the Q&A chat so we can answer them. Actually, in 5 minutes, we'll have our Q&A session. So make sure you write them there so I can see them when I start the Q&A. Now, another thing that I wanted to share was my own experience, right? When it comes to campaigns, I have done, and that's again why I mentioned that it's important to actually think about with which brands you're collaborating with, also yourself, and not just take every single brand or every other company to work with and make a post about. Because what happened with me was that in the beginning, of course, I was experimenting, right? I love experimentation. And I made a deal with a brand who was working within data and BI field. And I actually made an influencer post about that brand and their application and their competition. And actually, that post did not generate a lot of views and did not generate a lot of value for the brand either. That is because my audience is not purely data and BI focused. My audience is all about marketing, sales, and leadership. So you really need to know your audience, and you yourself need to, also think when you're making a deal with another brand, if you'll be able to deliver. Because if you're gonna always post about marketing and then make a post about sales, it's not going to perform well, and the brand is going to pay you for the post, but you're not going to get them the engagement that they expect, right? So you really need to also think which brands you're going to work with and with whom you want to collaborate. And also, when it comes to becoming business influencers, it's important to mention employee influencers, because those are also on the rise. Not only business influencers, but also people who work at companies. You don't have to be a person that has their own company, is a consultant or something else. You can also be an influencer, a business influencer, or a thought leader if you're working as a specific corporation or a company. So that also exists, and employee influencers always bring more value. And if you activate your company's people, that always also generates much more traction than anything else. So when we're talking about business influencers, it's important to mention that that doesn't only go with people who are freelancers, self-employed, CEOs, and so forth, but that can also be people who work at companies. And as you can see here from the slide, this is an example of views and comments and posts generated by me alone, and then together with my team. And it shows that that can also bring much more value. So you can also work with other companies as a company, right? You don't always need to work as an individual, but you can also involve your team members as well. And also, when it comes to some examples of really strong business influencers, yet also helping their businesses, I would always suggest looking into Shield and Andreas Johnson, because his content is really strong. He's getting a lot of engagement. He's a real business influencer. He's posting a lot about LinkedIn analytics, branding, personal branding. And on the other hand, that also attracts more viewers towards his company's content. And that's, again, why I keep on talking that business influencers are not only helping themselves as much as they're also helping other companies and even their own company. And when it comes to tracking and analytics, because when you work with other businesses and other companies, it's important that you have all the right data to show them right after the collaboration, what worked, what didn't, how it performed, and so forth. So for that, we're using Shield tool to really track our data, to track my data, to track my colleagues' data. And if you really want to become a business influencer, then Shield as a tool is a must for you to get to really show all of those analytics to your potential clients. And at the end of the day, LinkedIn is really booming right now. 2021 is the year of LinkedIn, so step into the game. I feel like I have been saying this for the last 2 years, and still people have not listened. So I feel like now it's really the year that we are going to see enormous growth, and we have already seen an enormous growth because of COVID and because of whole pandemic situation. But now more than ever, that's basically where you want to do business. That's where you want to brand yourself. That's where you want to get potential deals for your brand and really scale up your personal branding game. So that was it from me today. I hope you learned something new about what it is to be a business influencer on LinkedIn. Like I mentioned, there are no yet big guidelines, rules around this. LinkedIn is coming up with the content creators platform, meaning that in latest autumn, you will see this rolling out everywhere. And all the content creators on LinkedIn, hopefully, in the future will also be able to benefit from from the platform and earn some money. So that was it from me today. And now I think it's time for Q&A. Let's connect on LinkedIn and let's keep in touch through all of these channels. Feel free to reach out to me. And if you have any questions, now it's the time. And I've also wanted to just quickly take a look at the polls that we had. And if you have had some votes while you're just writing your questions in the Q&A, let me see if I can actually publish the results of the polls. So how often do you use LinkedIn? 72% of you said once a day. That's amazing. And then just a few said rarely. And then, have you heard about business influencers? 65% yes, 24 somewhat, and 12 never. Thanks for voting. That's really interesting to see. And I'm just looking forward to your questions if you have any. Now it's time for Q&A. And thank you so much for just tuning in. You were amazing. I saw 70-something people, and that really warms my heart. Anders is asking, how do LinkedIn stories fit into your publication mix? That's a really great question. Now, of course, when you're posting on LinkedIn, there are a lot of different content types, and LinkedIn stories is one of them. Now, often whenever we create posts, or whenever I create a sponsored content post, I would also create a few stories about it. But so far, LinkedIn stories do not have the same functionality and reach as Instagram stories. So you cannot only advertise through LinkedIn stories. And it works well as like an additional extra place where you can actually get people involved into your post. But it doesn't work on its own alone as only as a post for sponsored content. I feel like LinkedIn is working with that. At least that's what their CEO is telling us. And right now, LinkedIn stories are not in any way prioritized. If you want to see someone's story, and let's say you're connected with a lot of people, you need to scroll through that list of many stories to find the person's that you want to watch, right? The person's story that you want to see. And that's, again, why it's so difficult right now to get people to watch your stories. I feel like I have 20,000 followers, yet my stories are being watched by only 500 people at the best. So it's slowly rolling out, but thanks for the question. I hope I answered it. Any other questions? Now it's your time. We have 2 minutes left. Some free advice. I hope you're ready to take LinkedIn with the storm and start branding yourselves on LinkedIn and really getting those corporate clients or working with other businesses. It's definitely new, and a lot of companies are not aware of this opportunity. Let me see if there's something else that I should be answering. Don't be shy. Else, connect with me on LinkedIn. Yeah, I think let's connect there. If you have any more questions, feel free to write me. Yeah, I feel like that was it from me for today. And I'll just stick for the last minute to see if there's anything else, and we'll end the session. Also, if you want to get the slides, if you want to get a PDF of the slides, feel free to write to us at contact@linkadis.com or just privately to me on LinkedIn in a message. All right, I think that was it for today. Thank you for listening in. Thank you for tuning in, and have a really wonderful Wednesday and the rest of the week.